Today we're going to have a conversation with Professor Jawwad Darr at the University College London, where he does research in applied materials. He's done a fantastic amount of work in that, and we learn some of what he's done in a bit. But Jawwad is exceptional. He was born and brought up in Bradford. And Bradford is not a place where many Pakistanis do well, but he's done exceptionally well. Jawwad, I've never been to Bradford. What's it like over there?
Well, first of all, Assalamu alaikum, Pervez, and thank you for interviewing me today. So, I was brought up in Bradford. Bradford, for those who don't, it's a bit like Chota, Pakistan, but in the UK. Actually, some people have done very well from Bradford. But I guess the point is in academia, people generally struggle to get into academic careers. If you started off in Bradford in the working class environment, it's a struggle because, of course, our universities are largely white institutions and upper middle class institutions. So there is a big barrier to becoming a professor, say, in those top institutions.
So did you go to school in Bradford? From what age to what age? Or were you earlier in Pakistan?
So I've always lived in the UK, born here in 1970. I frequently traveled to Pakistan, and frankly, I had a love-hate relationship with Pakistan. I don't think my cousins really understood me. They thought I was some privileged babu who was coming to Pakistan, that I was very, living a good lifestyle. But actually, the school I went to wasn't great. I had really, really poor schooling. The environment I was in, many of, in Bradford at that time, many people came from the villages. They were totally uneducated. They were not interested in education. So my schooling was in that kind of environment. I didn't go to any grammar schools, and to be honest, I didn't really know what a grammar school was at that time. So really, I would say I had an unremarkable education by all measures. But like many kids at the age of 14 or 15, I made a decision that I was going to focus on my studies, and the rest is history, I guess.
Yeah, you said the schools in Bradford aren't great. Is that true for everybody, for whites, for Bangladeshis, Indians, or is it specifically for Pakistanis that you refer to?
I think, well, there are very good schools, which are the grammar schools, and obviously some of the... in fact, what's really interesting is many of our diaspora who are now in leadership positions have started to turn around some of the failing schools. There are great examples. I think one of them is called Havisham Academy, and the board of trustees are largely British-Pakistanis. And actually what they did is they went into these failing schools and looked at the causes and found that a lot of it was to do with the teacher's attitude towards the children, thinking that they would amount to nothing, they would never achieve anything. And actually by getting rid of some of those teachers and changing the attitudes and also of the Pakistani parents, who, many of whom are not interested in education, certainly since the 70s. So, there have been good strides, and I think, things are looking on the up, but of course the vast majority of our diaspora in these ghettos, as I'll call them, in Birmingham, in Manchester, in Bradford, we are still under-attaining massively. I mean, you just have to look at the GCSE scores. Indians, for example, are doing at least 20% better, both male and female, in average GCSE scores, which, in terms of attainment. So this is really down to differences in attitudes to education and other factors.
It's very interesting that you say that, because here in Pakistan, people say that, the schools are bad, the textbooks are bad, the examination system is poor, and they blame the government. They say that not enough facilities have been provided, and there's truth in that. But what you're telling me is that even when there are facilities, it's really attitudes that matter. But tell me, Jawwad, what is it particularly about attitudes that you think are the greatest impediment to one's movement into academia and into professions that demand real skills?
Well, let's take it from the UK side, and you can draw your analogies whether this is relevant to Pakistan. First and foremost, your parents really need to have the attitude that education is going to lead somewhere for you. My parents had that attitude, even though they weren't vastly educated. I mean, my father was a bus driver, my mum was selling cosmetics and ready-made clothes without any higher education whatsoever. but they realize the value of education. And this is the first thing. And then I think another issues are around resilience. In the UK, British Pakistanis are subject to bias, both conscious and unconscious bias. We struggle to get ahead. We have to be 10 or 20% better than our white colleagues. And, we don't integrate either into white society. We're very insular. And we can talk about the socioeconomic reasons of that. Some of us have colonial hang-ups. Some of us have imposter syndrome. I didn't suffer from any of that, probably because I was born in this country in the UK. And I guess I had a resilience that was tested at times, but many people who have been on a similar journey have never made it to academia, or certainly not the top universities, because maybe at one stage they've given up or just thought, well, it's just not worth the effort.
Jawwad, when you say insular, you mean that people, they don't look outside their community. आप घर पे क्या ज़बान बोलते थे?
So this is quite complicated because I tend to speak in English to my children because they don't speak Urdu and Punjabi very well. But my mother brought me up in Punjabi, and so she's from Lahore. But then, of course, as I was growing up, Urdu became the vogue, and then all my younger siblings were speaking Urdu. So I speak a really horrible mixture of Urdu, Punjabi, and English all at the same time, like many of the diaspora, in fact.
Well, actually, people here in Pakistan are speaking a horrible mixture of Urdu and English also. It's very painful. But look, it's completely understandable that you grow up in an environment where there's English spoken all around, and then, well, in school also it's 100% English. So as you were growing up, you said you felt discrimination, and certainly that's a fact of life. How does it manifest itself in Britain?
Well, it's an identity crisis that we have in the UK, and we still have it. The next generation still has it. So we often, in my case, I had a huge identity crisis around about 18. I found Pakistan a difficult place to go to because of the behavior of my cousins and family who didn't understand me. They saw me as an outsider. And whilst I was in this country in the 70s, racism was rampant. Openly racist people, they wouldn't allow their children to even mix with Pakistani kids or British Pakistani kids. So we were kind of nomads that didn't belong anywhere. And this manifested itself. People went in the bad direction sometimes because they just didn't know what to make of their identity. And I think once you, as a young person, have a clear sense of your identity, and mine was, I'm proud to be British, but I'm extremely proud of my heritage. I absolutely love Pakistan. I love Pakistanis. I know there's a lot wrong in Pakistan, but there's also a lot wrong in the UK. So I keep a perspective. And as you know, Pervez, I do a lot of work with Pakistan and Pakistanis to support them. And, I am really proud of my identity now.
But we'll come to that. We'll come to what you're doing for Pakistan. But why are you proud to be a Pakistani? I mean, I'm not. I'm not ashamed either. I think it's just accidental that I happen to be born here. Well, it to me is accidental that one is born in India across the line, across the border. One is born in Jamaica, whatever. So if I was born in Jamaica, would I feel proud? I don't think so. So why are you proud about being associated with Pakistan?
Well, the thing is, like I said, it goes into the makeup of your identity. I mean, I support Pakistan in the cricket, for example. My son supports England and Pakistan. So you have to look back at the history. We were definitely, as children, the society rejected the Pakistanis largely. So we actually identified with Pakistan without living in Pakistan. And look, Pakistan is a beautiful country. Many of the friends and colleagues I have are wonderful, amazing, principled human beings, and they do what they say. Of course, you are probably referring more to the issues around politics and other factors that are holding the country back and holding the development of science and technology. Well, those are frustrating things, but I live in the UK. I'm fortunate that I'm not exposed to those on a daily basis. I think had I lived in Pakistan all my life, I may have a different attitude, more like many of our scientist colleagues who are probably despairing at
No, 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 no. Hang on, hang on. I was looking at it from a philosophical point of view. If I was born in Jamaica, if I was born in Indonesia, or if I was born in Delhi, what control do I have about where I've been born, who my parents are, what my religion is? So, don't you think it's better that one should think of oneself as a global citizen?
I think that's very true, actually. And I think that's what a lot of people with identity crisis think of themselves as. They say, well, I don't belong anywhere, but I have these different things that make up my personality. I mean, once you've traveled around the world, you soon begin to realize that people, the same problems persist everywhere. They're just in different magnitudes. Britain is not, some sort of paradise. Far from it. This is a really, really tough environment in which to succeed. And, so that we have our own issues and we have corruption just like in any other country. But I do agree with you. But look, you have to sometimes, it helps for one to have a reference point in terms of culture and in terms of, I think that can be useful to people, particularly as they're forming their self-identity at a younger age. I think as you get older, you tend to be more softer in terms of where you potentially would see yourself as more like a global citizen, perhaps.
I can understand that, and I'm so glad that we agree that okay, we happen to be born on this globe, but there was a particular point that is something that we are personally associated with, and so as long as we're not jingoistic, and as long as we think that okay, we're from here, but we're not against anybody else, I think that's a perfectly legitimate. It's a very good point of view. And I know you've been doing a lot about helping Pakistan. We'll come to that in a bit. But first tell me, how was the climb out of your school into university? University is very different there as compared to here in Pakistan. So maybe you want to keep that in mind in telling us.
Okay, well, look, I've been a visiting professor since 2008 in Pakistan, and I've been regularly visiting Pakistan, so I am very well aware of what is happening in Pakistan, what has been happening. Now, I compare that to the UK system. Frankly, somebody coming from a lower class working back, so there's a class element of universities. They are largely for white elitists, elite society, upper society. Of course, efforts are being made to let working class people in, but when you come from an ethnic minority and you're lower working class, it's virtually impossible to get into the top universities. I think, how did I make a successful transition to universities? To be honest, two things: perseverance and luck. Okay, and you can call it kismet, you can call it whatever you want, the hand of God, but perseverance and kismet. And really, perseverance means that I just kept going and had a few lucky breaks. Ended up getting a PhD at Imperial. Realized I was completely unequipped to do a PhD at a top university, and spent 3 years working out how to be good enough and how to, I basically learned everything in my PhD. My degree was unremarkable, I would say. I got a 2:1, couldn't look after myself. I was away from my home, from my mum. Didn't fit into the university, hated it, but stuck at it because I wanted to better myself. Then I was mentored by a British-Pakistani. I couldn't get lectureships. I'd spent maybe 6 or 7 years doing postdoctoral research after my PhD, learning different things. So that was a really good thing that stood me in good stead, because I think many of my white colleagues get promoted to lectureships far too early before they're actually ready to become lecturers. They don't have a strong science research base. So by my misfortune of not being able to get lectureships after my PhD, it actually meant I was really got all the experience, the broad experience of different topics. And the other thing I realized was in academia, if you're different to everybody else, you're more likely to be the king of your own domain. And when you look at what research I do, it's really multidisciplinary, really cutting edge, and there's virtually nobody doing the same thing as me. So I'm kind of the king of what I do. And I think that's a really important, so you could say through bad luck and good luck. I was also mentored by a British-Pakistani, again, which is very rare, a senior who was a British-Pakistani, who really supported me. And again, through luck and good hard work, I got fellowships. And, I even getting the job at UCL was kind of, I applied for a job that, frankly, I was over, I already had a lectureship. And I came for a temporary position. And in the end, I managed to engineer a position at UCL. Things happen for reasons, good things and bad things. And when bad things happen to me, I never assume that it's going to end in a bad way. I always think isme koi betri hoga. And when you have that attitude in life, it takes you a long way.
Okay, we're going to come in a bit to what you've actually done in your professional life. But before that, in the next 3 minutes, because then we'll split this into two parts. Tell me, what is it that you've been doing with Pakistanis here in Pakistan, and how are you encouraging them to come to the UK, and what is it that they do with you once they do come to the UK? Or hang on a bit, let's take a break here and come back and discuss this in just a minute or so.